Chamber of Ignorance. The Galactic Assembly Hall hung in the void between stars, a massive structure of crystalline metals and flowing energy fields. Inside its main chamber, representatives from 3,000 species gathered in circular tiers that rose toward a domed ceiling displaying the swirling colors of nearby nebulae. The air hummed with translation devices converting thousands of languages into coherent meaning. Ambassador Zelthan stood at the central platform, his chitinous body gleaming under the chamber lights. He was a Vekari, an insectoid species known for logic and careful deliberation. His compound eyes scanned the assembly as he spoke with measured precision. "I stand before this council to propose Resolution 7042, Zelthan announced. "The human isolation protocol has been in effect for 180 standard years. I believe it is time to discuss lifting this ban and allowing humanity to rejoin galactic civilization." The chamber erupted immediately. Some delegates gestured with appendages, tentacles, or energy fields. Others made sounds that ranged from musical tones to guttural roars. The younger representatives seemed particularly animated. A figure rose from the lower tiers with theatrical flair. Craxus was a Thuranian, a species that had dominated military contracts across 7 sectors. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, his body covered in interlocking armor plates that had evolved naturally over millions of years. His species had never known a predator that could harm them. "This is absurd," Craxus declared, his voice amplified across the chamber. "Why are we wasting time discussing humans? They are fragile creatures from a world that should have killed them long ago. They have thin skin that tears easily. Their bones break under minimal pressure. They require a specific mixture of gases just to breathe." Laughter rippled through sections of the assembly. A delegate from the aquatic Nerisians added her voice. "Their homeworld is a death trap," she said, her words translated from sonar pulses. "Storms that destroy cities. Plates of rock that shift and crack. Invisible organisms that kill them by the millions. They wage war against their own planet just to survive each day." Craxus smiled, showing rows of teeth designed for crushing metal. "Exactly. And when we found them, they were still confined to their single world, fighting among themselves over resources and ideologies. They had not even achieved faster-than-light travel. We gave them that technology as a gift." "A gift they threw back in our faces," added a Dracian representative. "The Drexians were silicon-based life forms who experienced time differently than carbon-based species. They used our technology to start a conflict they could not possibly win. The war lasted barely 3 cycles before they were forced to surrender." More voices joined the chorus. A crystalline Luxarian spoke about human emotional instability. A gaseous ephemeron mentioned their incredibly short lifespans. A hulking Grendar warrior laughed about their lack of natural weapons. "They have no claws," the Grendar said. "No venom, no armor, no natural defenses at all. They are prey animals who somehow survived long enough to reach space. The isolation protocol is not punishment. It is protection. We are protecting them from a galaxy they are not equipped to handle." Zelthan remained calm throughout the mockery. His species had learned patience over countless generations. He waited for the noise to subside before speaking again. "You speak of human weakness," he said quietly. "But you speak from ignorance. How many of you have actually studied human history? How many have reviewed the classified records from first contact?" Craxus waved a dismissive claw. "I have read the reports. Humans made contact with a coalition exploration team on some border world. They attempted aggression. They were defeated. They were quarantined for the safety of all. What more is there to know?" "A great deal more," came a new voice. The entire assembly turned toward the Elder Council platform. Counselor Morvenna had spoken. She was ancient even by the standards of her long-lived species. The Keeltharians could survive for thousands of years, and Morvenna had been a member of the Elder Council for nearly 800 standard years. She had been present at the founding of the current Galactic Assembly. Her form shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that conveyed deep concern. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of accumulated wisdom and something else. Something that might have been regret. "The young mock what they do not understand," Morvenna said. "They laugh because they have never seen the full recording. They ridicule human weakness because they have never witnessed human strength." Craxus's confidence wavered slightly, but he pressed forward. "With respect, Counselor, what recording? What strength could humans possibly possess that would change anyone's assessment?" Morvenna's light patterns shifted to colors that indicated sadness. "The recording that led to the isolation protocol. The recording that made us realize we had made a terrible mistake. The recording that has been sealed and classified for 180 years because those who witnessed it could not bear to watch it again. The chamber had gone completely silent. Even the translation devices seemed to hum more quietly. I was there, Morvenna continued. I was part of the First Contact Evaluation Committee. I voted to share our faster-than-light technology with humanity. I believed we were helping a young species take its place among the stars. I believed we were being generous and wise. She paused and her lights dimmed. I have never been more wrong about anything in my entire existence. Zelthan spoke carefully. Counselor, I formally request that the Assembly view the complete First Contact recording. Not the edited summary that appears in the public records, but the full classified version. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. A few made sounds of protest. But Morvenna raised one delicate appendage for silence. I second this request, she said. It is time. The young delegates need to understand. They need to see what we saw. They need to know why the isolation protocol exists, and why it was never meant as punishment. She looked directly at Kraxus. They need to understand what happens when you push humans too far. The vote was called. Despite obvious reluctance from the older delegates, the motion passed. The younger representatives outnumbered their elders and they were curious. They wanted to see what could possibly be so disturbing about humans. The chamber lights dimmed. The holographic display activated, filling the entire central space with a three-dimensional image. A date stamp appeared, 180 standard years ago. Location coordinates indicated a world designated as Karzan Prime, a desert planet in what was then neutral territory. The image showed a human spacecraft landing on red sand dunes. It was a diplomatic vessel, clearly marked with symbols indicating peaceful intentions. The ship's design was primitive by galactic standards, clunky and inefficient. But it had made the journey. The airlock opened. 12 humans emerged, wearing formal clothing adapted for the desert heat. They carried no weapons. Behind them came 7 more humans in military uniforms, but their weapons were holstered and their posture was relaxed. These were guards meant for ceremony, not combat. A human woman led the group. She appeared to be in middle age by their standards, with dark skin and graying hair. She carried a container that the recording's data identified as containing gifts, samples of human art, music, and literature. We come in peace, she said in carefully practiced galactic standard. Her accent was thick but understandable. We bring greetings from Earth and all of humanity. We hope this meeting will be the first of many, and that our peoples can build a lasting friendship. Waiting for them on the sand was a reception committee. But it was not the diplomatic delegation that humanity had been promised. Instead, 5 species had sent military representatives. The Theranians were there, along with Drexians, Grendars, Nerisians, and Luxarians. The same 5 species whose delegates had mocked humans most loudly in the chamber. The coalition commander stepped forward. He was a Theranian, and his armor plates gleamed with military honors. He looked at the human diplomat with undisguised contempt. You should not have come, he said. What happened next was sudden and brutal. The Theranian drew a plasma weapon and fired directly at the human diplomat. She died instantly, her body falling to the red sand. Before the humans could react, the coalition forces opened fire on all of them. In the assembly chamber, several delegates made sounds of shock. This was not in any official record. This had been hidden. The holographic recording continued with merciless clarity. The 12 unarmed humans died in seconds. The 7 security officers tried to return fire, but they were hopelessly outgunned. 4 of them fell in the initial assault. The remaining 3 managed to drag themselves and 1 wounded civilian behind their spacecraft, using it as cover. The coalition commander laughed as he watched them scramble for survival. Send in the full force, he ordered. I want this finished. I want every human dead and I want the recordings sent to their homeworld. Let them see what happens when prey animals try to walk among predators. The recording showed coalition dropships arriving. Hundreds of them. Thousands of elite soldiers disembarked, armed with the finest weapons the galaxy could provide. They surrounded the human ship while the 3 surviving security officers and 1 wounded civilian retreated into a nearby canyon system. The coalition commander addressed his troops with confidence. 8,000 of us against 4 wounded humans. This will be over by sunset. Hunt them down. Make them suffer. Show them the price of pretending to be our equals. The soldiers cheered and began advancing into the canyons. The recording's timestamp showed it was early morning on Karzan Prime. In the assembly chamber, the younger delegates who had been laughing earlier now sat in stunned silence. Craxus's armor plates had shifted to colors indicating deep discomfort. "Counselor," he said quietly, "why have we never been told about this?" Morvena's lights pulsed with ancient sorrow. "Keep watching," she said. "You need to see what happened next. You need to understand what 3 humans did over the next 43 days. The holographic display continued. Night fell on Karzan Prime. The coalition forces made camp, confident and relaxed. They had cornered their prey in a box canyon with no escape. In the morning they would finish the hunt. But morning never came for 57 coalition soldiers. The humans attacked in the darkness with a ferocity that the coalition forces had never encountered. Using nothing but knives taken from their dead companions and rocks from the canyon floor, 3 wounded humans killed 57 elite soldiers without making enough noise to wake the others. When the coalition commander discovered the bodies at dawn, he stood in silence for a long time. Then he said something that the recording's translation device captured perfectly. "What are they?" The hunt had just begun. But now nobody was certain who was hunting whom. The recording that changed everything. The holographic display continued to fill the assembly chamber with images from Karzan Prime. The timestamp showed day 2 of what the coalition forces had expected to be a brief hunt. Instead, the recording revealed something entirely different. The coalition commander stood among the bodies of his fallen soldiers, his confidence visibly shaken. The 3 human security officers had vanished back into the canyon system before dawn, leaving behind only death and questions. The commander called for a full strategic deployment. "Seal every exit," he ordered. "Use thermal scanners, motion detectors, atmospheric sensors. Find them. They cannot hide forever." 8,000 soldiers moved into the canyon with military precision. They had technology that could detect a heartbeat from a kilometer away. They had weapons that could vaporize rock. They had armor that could withstand extreme temperatures and impacts. They were the elite forces of 5 species that had conquered dozens of worlds. The humans had rocks and knives and wounds that should have killed them already. The first coalition patrol entered a narrow section of the canyon in perfect formation. Their scanners showed nothing. Their sensors detected no movement. They advanced with weapons ready, checking every shadow and crevice. The canyon walls exploded above them. The humans had spent the night weakening the rock face using nothing but patience and sharp stones. Tons of debris fell on the patrol, killing 12 soldiers instantly and trapping 17 more. While the coalition forces rushed to rescue their trapped comrades, the humans struck from behind, killing the rescue team and disappearing again. In the assembly chamber, Craxus watched with his armor plates turning pale. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They were wounded. They had no supplies. How could they even move, let alone fight?" Morvena's lights pulsed with grim emphasis. "Humans have something we did not account for in our assessments. Something that does not appear in biological scans or cultural surveys. When you kill their friends, when you threaten their existence, when you push them into a corner with no hope of survival, something awakens in them. Your species has a word for it in your ancient texts. Berserker rage. Humanity calls it something simpler. Survival instinct." The recording continued through day 3. The coalition forces had adapted their tactics, moving in larger groups with overlapping sensor coverage. They thought numbers and technology would overcome whatever advantage the humans possessed. They were wrong again. The humans had turned the entire canyon system into a weapon. They diverted water from underground streams to flood passages at critical moments. They created avalanches. They poisoned water sources using chemical compounds from their own medical supplies. They set traps that used the coalition's own technology against them, rigging captured weapons to explode when activated. But more than that, they attacked the coalition's psychology. They left messages scratched into rock faces in perfect galactic standard. "You killed our friends. We remember. We will never stop." They placed the bodies of fallen coalition soldiers in positions that forced their comrades to see them. They made sounds in the night that mimicked coalition communication signals, creating confusion and paranoia. A Dracian officer appeared in the recording, speaking to the commander on day 5. "Sir, the troops are becoming unstable. They are not sleeping. They are seeing humans in every shadow. Yesterday, 3 soldiers fired on each other because they thought they saw the enemy. Morale is collapsing." The commander's response was to send for reinforcements. 2,000 more soldiers arrived, bringing the total force to 10,000. Surely 10,000 elite soldiers could defeat 3 wounded humans. The recording showed what happened next with clinical precision. The humans changed tactics again. Instead of defending and ambushing, they went on the offensive. They raided coalition camps in broad daylight, killing sentries and stealing supplies. They sabotaged equipment. They corrupted computer systems using access codes they had somehow extracted from captured soldiers. A Luxarian technical officer appeared in the footage, his crystalline form flickering with distress. They are using our own protocols against us. They have figured out our command structure, our communication frequencies, our operational patterns. They are learning faster than we can adapt. Day 7. The coalition had lost over 800 soldiers. The commander called a meeting of his senior officers. The recording captured his words clearly. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "They are just 3 individuals. 3 wounded humans from a species we deemed too weak to join galactic civilization. Yet they have killed 800 of our finest warriors and show no signs of stopping. What are we facing?" A Grendar captain, his massive form scarred from multiple encounters, spoke with unusual humility. "Permission to speak freely, sir? I do not think we are fighting soldiers anymore. I think we are fighting something else. Something that will not stop until we are all dead or they are." The commander rejected the captain's concerns and ordered the assault to continue. But the recording showed that doubt had infected the coalition forces. Soldiers hesitated before entering dark passages. Patrols moved slower, checking and rechecking their surroundings. The hunters had become the hunted and they knew it. Day 14. Coalition casualties exceeded 2,000. The commander sent an encrypted message to Coalition High Command requesting permission to use orbital bombardment. The response was immediate and negative. The operation was supposed to be a quiet elimination of a troublesome species. Destroying an entire canyon system with orbital weapons would raise questions they could not answer. The humans continued their campaign with mechanical efficiency. The recording showed one human appearing briefly on a ridgeline. He was thin from lack of food, covered in blood both his own and others, and moving with a limp that suggested serious injury. But his eyes were clear and focused. He looked directly at a coalition camera drone and raised one hand in a gesture. The translation database identified it as a human salute to the dead. Then he vanished again. Day 21. 3 weeks into what should have been a one-day hunt, coalition casualties exceeded 4,000. Half of their original force was dead or incapacitated. The commander finally did something he should have done at the beginning. He ordered a complete withdrawal. But the humans did not let them leave easily. They attacked the retreating forces with renewed fury, as if they knew victory was close. They collapsed exit routes. They ambushed rear guards. They made the coalition pay for every meter of ground they tried to reclaim. In the assembly chamber, delegates who had been mocking humans less than an hour ago now sat in horrified silence. The recording showed coalition soldiers, elite warriors from species that prided themselves on martial prowess, running in panic from enemies they could not see and could not stop. Day 30. The coalition commander made a final stand at the original landing site. He had fewer than 3,000 soldiers left from his force of 10,000. He sent one last message to Coalition High Command. "We have failed. The humans are not what we thought they were. They are not weak prey animals. They are apex predators who have been holding back their entire existence. We awakened something in them that should have remained dormant. If you are watching this, learn from our mistake. Never corner a human. Never threaten their survival. Never make them choose between surrender and vengeance. Because they will choose vengeance every single time, and they will pursue it with a determination that defies all logic and reason." The recording showed the commander's final moments. A human appeared at the edge of the camp, walking slowly despite obvious wounds. It was one of the security officers, barely recognizable after a month of brutal survival. Behind him came the other 2, supporting each other, their military uniforms torn and stained. The coalition forces raised their weapons, but the commander signaled them to hold fire. He walked forward to meet the humans, leaving his weapon behind. "Why?" he asked simply. "Why did you not die? Why did you keep fighting when any rational being would have surrendered?" The human who had saluted the camera spoke. His voice was rough from dehydration and screaming, but his words were clear. "You killed our friends. You murdered diplomats who came in peace. You tried to exterminate us to prove we were weak. You wanted to send a message to our homeworld." He paused, and despite his wounds, despite the exhaustion that should have killed him days ago, he stood straight. "So we sent a different message. We sent the message that humans do not break. We bend. We adapt. We survive. And we remember." The commander nodded slowly. "We made a terrible mistake." "Yes," the human agreed. "You did." The recording showed what happened next. A human rescue ship finally arrived, responding to the distress beacon that had been broadcasting since the initial massacre. The 3 surviving security officers were evacuated. Medical scans showed injuries that should have been fatal. Broken bones that had been ignored. Infections that should have caused system shutdown. Blood loss that should have induced unconsciousness. Yet they had fought for 30 days without pause. The fourth human, the wounded civilian they had been protecting, was found alive in a hidden cave. She had survived solely because 3 soldiers had refused to let her die, had brought her water and food salvaged from dead enemies, had protected her while simultaneously conducting a month-long campaign of vengeance. The recording's final segment showed the aftermath. Of the 10,000 coalition soldiers who had entered the canyon, fewer than 400 survived to see the rescue ship arrive. The rest had been killed by 3 wounded humans using nothing but improvisation, determination, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. The holographic display faded. The assembly chamber remained in absolute silence. Counselor Morvena's lights pulsed with colors that indicated profound sadness. "Now you understand," she said. "The isolation protocol was never meant as punishment for humanity. It was meant as protection for everyone else. We realized that we had encountered a species that possessed something unique in the galaxy. When humans fight for survival, when they fight to protect those they care about, they do not stop. They do not surrender. They do not forgive." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We implemented the isolation protocol because we realized that if humanity ever decided to wage a real war, not a confused skirmish but an actual war of survival, they would fight with a ferocity and determination that could destabilize the entire galactic order. We needed time. Time for them to mature as a species. Time for us to understand them better. Time to ensure that when we finally met again, it would be as equals, not as predators and prey." Craxus stood slowly, his armor plates displaying colors of deep shame. "I spoke with arrogance and ignorance. I mocked a species I did not understand. I ridiculed their weakness without comprehending their strength." He turned to face Zelthan. "Ambassador, I formally withdraw my opposition to Resolution 7042. Humanity has served their quarantine. It is time they return to galactic civilization." Other delegates rose, one by one, adding their voices to Craxus's. The Nerisians, the Luxarians, the Grendars, all of them withdrew their objections. The species whose soldiers had died in the canyon now voted to welcome humanity back. The vote was called. It passed unanimously. Zelthan's compound eyes reflected the chamber lights as he spoke. "The humans have a saying. Do not mistake kindness for weakness. For 180 years, they have accepted isolation without complaint. They have continued to develop, to grow, to prepare. When they return to us, let us remember what we learned today. Let us remember that the species we once dismissed as too weak to join us is actually strong in ways we never imagined." Morvena had the final word. "Let the record show that on this day the Galactic Assembly acknowledges our error. We did not give humanity time to prove themselves worthy of joining us. We gave ourselves time to become worthy of joining them." The session ended. Delegates filed out in thoughtful silence. The recording had changed everything. The jokes had stopped. The mockery had died. In its place was something new. Respect. Understanding. And perhaps a touch of healthy fear. Somewhere in the quarantine zone, on a blue world orbiting a yellow star, humanity waited. They had waited for 180 years with patience and dignity. Soon the galaxy would call them back. And this time, everyone would remember the lesson learned in a canyon on Karzan Prime. Never underestimate humans. Never threaten their survival. Never make them choose between surrender and defiance. Because when push comes to shove, when the chips are down, when there is no hope left, humans do not give up. They dig deeper. They fight harder. They remember. And they never ever stop. The ban was lifted. Humanity was coming home. And the galaxy would never be the same.